Yeousch!
What is up, everyone? StonePost 34 bringing you more of growing up with StonePost. You know, I was sitting here thinking about New Year's Eve is almost here. That a thing in the paper about D.U.I checkpoints, and it got me thinking about my experience with the D.U.I sobriety test. And before we get into this, I just want to say, do not drink and drive, and you'll understand what I mean. I did have a few drinks, but you'll hear the whole story. It's kind of interesting, but I just want to preface that. Do not drink and drive. Always choose to either call someone or hand your keys off to a sober person. So anyway, as you know, and if you've listened to a few of my stories, I used to play competitive pool. This happened actually after college, kind of in my career, young career, before I met my wife, any of that. What happened is I met my brother. We played together on a team. We met up at this pool hall, and we played a few games of pool. It was about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we decided to have a couple beers. I had like 2 pints of some beer, and we played a few games and then headed out. So I decide, well, I'm meeting my buddy at 5:30. He calls me, he says, go get some beer, and I decide I'll just stop by the liquor store. So I run over to the liquor store, which is just right around the corner from the pool hall, and get an 18-pack of beer. And I just, nowadays I throw that typically in the trunk if I get some wine or beer. Just having it in the car is just a bad idea. I live in the state of Kansas. It is illegal to have an open container. Some states, I know, if you're a passenger, you can have an open container. Not my state. So I just play it safe anymore. I just put it in the back seat. Don't worry about ever getting what happened to me when you're about to hear what happened to me. So I just throw it in the floorboard of the passenger seat. It's just me. And I go about 2 blocks. Now, 2 blocks away is this underpass. So I head to the underpass. And this is a well-known speed trap in the town I live in. And I still live in the same town. And I'm doing about 45. And it's still 35 to this day in this area. And sure enough, there's a cop, because it's a blind corner as you go into this underpass, and I get lit up. I'm like, oh, crap. Here we go. I didn't really have anything to hide. The fact of the matter was, I'd only had a few beers, but, anyway, the cop being there, it just scares the bejesus out of you. So I get lit up, I get pulled over, and the officer comes up to my window. Get this. I know women have a thing for men in uniform. Well, I might have a thing for women in uniform. She was a police officer, a female police officer, comes up to the window, and she's smoking hot. I'm like, what? How awesome is this? But wait a minute, I'm getting pulled over. So she comes up to the window, and she said, do you know how fast you're going? I think they all say that. I think that's just the canned line. And I said, well, I know I was speeding. I said, I think I was doing over 40. She said, well, actually, you were doing 45 in a 35. And she looks over, and, of course, she can see that there's beer in the car. And she says, have you been drinking? Well, I'm not going to lie. I mean, that's the worst thing you can do is just lie. So I just tell her the truth. I said, yes, I've had a few beers. So she was really cool about it. She's like, okay. And then she goes back to her squad car, takes my driver's license, insurance, and registration, and then comes back up 2 or 3 minutes later. I think she was running all my stuff. And she says, well, I've called for backup. And I said, okay. Kind of freaked out, like, am I like a flight risk? Is there something on my rap sheet I don't know about? She said, well, I'm a female officer. To perform a field sobriety check, I have to have a male officer here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to give me the field sobriety check. I've seen this on TV, cops. I don't want to do this. So the male officer shows up, and he's just there. He's not really interacting with me or her. He's just kind of there letting her do her thing. And so, sure enough, she says, step out of the car. And I go behind the car, and she says, now I'm going to have you stand on one foot, stand on your left foot. And if you know, if you're a police officer, maybe you are, they give you very specific directions. I think it was stand on your left foot, lift your right leg. If you're drunk, maybe you're not going to do the right leg or lift the right leg. And tilt your head back and extend your arms, and with your right hand, touch your nose. It's almost like Simon Says is what it felt like. And then, so I do that. I lean back, I touch my nose, and then she says, do the other one, touch my nose. And then she says, hold your foot out. Little did I know when I'm doing this, because I've got my head tilted up, I am shaking like a leaf. I'm so scared. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening to me. And it's out on this major, it's a entrance to a highway. Cars are driving by. I'm sure someone saw me that knew me. And I'm just shaking like a leaf. Well, then she has me recite the alphabet. And here's I knew this. Here's the secret with the alphabet. She said, just recite the alphabet normal. Usually drunk people will sing the alphabet. Well, I didn't sing the alphabet. I knew better than that. So, not that you need a pro tip on the D.U.I. test, but don't sing the alphabet. Anyway, so she looks at me and she goes, I can tell you've only had a few beers. She said, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going to my buddy's house. And she goes, and what are you going to do with that beer? I said, well, we were going to drink it. She says, were you going out? I said, no. And I thought, well, actually, we might have been going out. But we did not go out that night. I was scared straight. And I had a few beers that night, and that was about it. So here's the interesting part of the story. I mean, the story's pretty good. So I was kind of seeing a girl at the time, and I've talked about her in a few of my videos. So I talked to her the next day. And, of course, I regale her with the whole getting pulled over, just having a few beers. And then I said, yeah, and this officer, I said, she was great. I mean, she was super nice and very friendly. And she goes, oh, really? She goes, well, and she actually used to date a police officer. So she knew a lot of these people. She goes, well, who was it? And I said, all I remember, she was brunette, about 5'4". All I remember, that's pretty detailed. And her name was Officer Parker. And she goes, oh, I know Officer Parker. And I think her name was Susan. I think it's Susan Parker. She goes, I know Susan. She goes, let me call her. And I said, okay. Kind of like, what? So she calls her, and later that day I get a call from my soon-to-be girlfriend. We weren't really dating at the time. And she said, well, I talked to Susan, and good news. I'm like, okay, yeah, what? Share, do tell. And she said, well, Susan said, you know, you were super nice. You were very, I don't know, follow directions, just not rude. I guess a lot of these officers get flack when they pull people over. And she said, and she said she's going to pull your ticket. Because I did get a speeding ticket. I failed to mention that. I got a speeding ticket. And I said, really? She's going to pull my ticket? And she goes, yeah. And by the way, she said you're really cute. And I'm sitting here going, yeah, can you hook me up? Because she wasn't married or dating anyone. But that didn't happen. So anyway, guys, that's my D.U.I. story. I guess I lucked out. I only had a few beers, and ever since then, I'm scared straight when it comes to drinking and driving, and I recommend that you guys be the same way. It only takes one time, and, you know, the state I live in, one time, it's a one strike and you're out. You lose your license for a year, and lots of bad things happen. Court costs is mandatory court costs. License for a year. If you get caught twice, it's mandatory jail time. So just be careful with that, guys. That's my growing up with StonePost. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Facebook. And I think Sub Sunday, Road to Sub Commander will be coming back very soon. So look for that. And take care as always. This is StonePost 34.
Yeousch!